So we were discussing about antibodies. Antibodies are the glycoproteins which are produced against antigens which enters into our body. They are also being known as immunoglobulins because of the fact that they belong to the gamma globulin fraction of the serum proteins, and that is why they are also being called as gamma globulins or immunoglobulins. Antibodies are of two kinds, membrane bound or secretory. Membrane bound antibodies are present on the surface of B cells, whereas secretory antibodies are being produced by plasma cells. These antibodies are meant for the elimination of the antigen by variety of mechanisms. These antibodies facilitates the elimination of the antigen from the body by variety of mechanisms. They can lead to the opsonization or rapid engulfment of the antigen by the phagocytic cells. They may lead to destruction of the antigen by means of complement proteins. They can also lead to the neutralization of a particular virus. They can lead to a phenomena that is known as antibody dependent cell mediated cytotoxicity, or called as ADCC, by which they can eliminate the antigen. By whatsoever means, antibodies facilitates the elimination of the antigen from the body. Antibodies are of 5 types: IgG, IgM, IgA, IgD and IgE. The 5 classes of antibodies are dependent upon the type of heavy chains which are present in a particular individual. If the heavy chain is gamma, then antibody class would be IgG. If it is mu, it will be IgM. If it is delta, it will be IgD. If it is epsilon, it will be IgE. If it is alpha, it will be IgA. So these antibodies, they will have a particular kind of structure. Now the 5 classes of antibodies that we have discussed right now, they are determined by the structure of the light chain, variable region of the antibody, structure of heavy chain constant region, and stage of the function. Actually, it is the structure of the heavy chain constant region that decides the class of the antibody molecule. Now in this particular question, it is being asked, in an immunoglobulin molecule, the region that is determining the complementarity is presented: variable domain of the heavy chain, variable domain of the light chain, variable domains of the heavy and the light chain, variable and constant domains of the heavy chain. Actually, it is the variable domains of heavy as well as the light chain. So this particular region will be known as complementarity determining region. It is the same region that is being called as paratope. This is the region which is made from the variable domains of heavy as well as the light chain, which will interact with the epitope. And this region is also called as hypervariable region. So in a nutshell, paratope, hypervariable region, complementary determining region, they all are synonyms. Now a question is being asked here: monoclonal antibodies differ from polyclonal antibodies in their property of reacting with a specific epitope, a specific antigen, a specific clone of the cells, D, all of the above. Actually, precisely the answer is specific epitope. There is a concept of monoclonal antibodies and polyclonal antibodies. Monoclonal antibodies are those antibodies which are derived from single clone of B cells and which binds to a specific epitope on an antigen. Whereas polyclonal antibodies are those antibodies which are derived from different clone of B cells, and all these epitopes are present on the same antigen. So whenever we get multiple infections, we will produce antibodies against multiple epitopes present on different kind of antigen. So that serum which is having different kinds of antibodies would be called as polyclonal antibody mixture. Whereas if we produce antibodies derived from single clone of B cells specifically against one particular epitope only, then they are called as monoclonal antibodies. These monoclonal antibodies are very important because in the diagnostics they have revolutionized the entire field of diagnosis of the diseases or the particular kind of molecules. That is why monoclonal antibodies plays a very important role. Whereas within the body, that is in vivo, polyclonal antibodies plays a very important role, and because of the polyclonal antibodies, antigens are being wiped out from the body by a variety of mechanisms. But when we are doing diagnosis, we need monoclonal antibodies. Monoclonal antibodies were first of all produced by a technique that is called as hybridomer technology, and that particular hybridomer technology results into the production of monoclonal antibodies. Now there is a question, the antigen binding site of an antibody molecule are formed from the molecule's variable region. Why are these regions called variable region? As we have seen in the earlier question, that it is the epitope or the antibody hypervariable region is derived from the variable domain of both heavy and the light chain. Now the question comes, what do we mean by the variable region and why it is being called so? This is being asked here. Option A, they can change their shape on command to fit to different antigens. Option B, they can change their shape when they bind to the antigen. Option C, this region shows most variability of amino acid sequences. Option D, their sizes vary considerably from one antibody to another. Here the correct answer is C. It is being called as variable region because if you compare different kind of antibodies, the most variability would be confined to this particular region, that is called as variable region, and that is why it is being called as variable region. Now if we see the structure of the antibodies, you will see that we have already discussed that it is the gamma globulin fraction of the serum protein which provides immunity, and that is why antibodies are also called as immunoglobulins. Now here, if you see in this particular diagram, this diagram is having its own classical importance because this particular set of experiment has resulted into the deciphering the structure of the antibody molecule. First, there was a digestion by papain. So, 2 FAB fragment and 1 FC region was generated. Then, pepsin digestion resulted into a big molecule that is called as FAB-. And if the same molecule is being digested with beta-mercaptoethanol so that the disulfide bridges between the molecules are being broken out. So, 2 and 2, 4 different polypeptide chains are visible. This particular experiment, which was being done by a variety of scientists including Porter and Edelman, they resulted into the elucidation of the structure of the antibody molecule, and that is why questions are being asked on this particular thing. Here now there is a question. The secretory IgA was electrophoresed on SDS page under reduced and natural denaturing condition. The number of polypeptide bands detected on the gel are option A 2, option B 3, C 4, D 5. If we go by this particular thing, our answer will be 2. But actually in the case of IgA molecule is made up of 2 heavy chains and 2 light chains, like any of the different kind of antibodies. But IgA molecule is having a J chain. The secretory IgA molecule is a dimeric molecule which is joined together by a J chain. So third thing is there, that is known as J chain. And then it also have a secretory component. So ultimately heavy chain, light chain, secretory component and J chain. Such 4 molecules are there, such 4 chains are there, and that is why the right option would be C, that is 4. So 4 bands would be observed. Now you can see this, the diagram of the antibody molecule. A typical antibody molecule is made up of 2 heavy and 2 light chains. These 2 heavy and 2 light chains are named so because this bigger chain is having molecular weight of 50,000, so it is heavy. That is why the name heavy chain. And this smaller light chain, since its molecular weight is 25,000, it is called as light chain. So a typical antibody molecule is made up of 2 identical heavy chains and 2 identical light chains. These heavy chains and light chains are joined to each other by means of disulfide bridges. And you know that disulfide bridges or bonds are formed between the cysteine residues of the chain. So here intramolecular as well as intermolecular disulfide bridges are there. This particular region is known as hinge region, and it is mostly having particular kind of amino acids which is known as proline. So proline is a kind of amino acid which is more confined or more common in the hinge region. The amino terminus portion, 110 amino acid portion of the heavy and the light chain will form the variable region, and rest of the region is called as the constant region. Actually, it is the constant region of the heavy chain based on which 5 classes of antibodies are there. Whereas light chain is of 2 types, kappa and lambda. If one of the chain is kappa, then both the chains would be kappa. If one of the chain is lambda, another chain would also be lambda. In human beings, 60% of the antibodies are having kappa and 40% are having lambda chain. Now, this is another molecule, a diagram of the antibody molecule, and here variable and constant region domains are being visible. Now, these constant region domains, they will form the base for the 5 different classes of antibodies, whereas this particular variable domain of the heavy chain as well as the light chain, they will be having 3 regions each, that is known as complementary determining region, or that is also called as paratope. So this particular paratope region would specifically interact with a discrete site present on the surface of antigen, that is called as epitope. Now this table indicates the 5 different classes of antibodies, their half-life, their concentrations, their serum levels, whether they are monomers, dimers, their types, their subtypes. All these features are important and they are being asked in NET exams, and their functions and properties are also being asked in the variety of exams. Now, here comes another concept that is known as cytokines. We already know that cytokines are the low molecular weight glycoproteins which generates the intensity and duration of the immune response. And the cytokines are produced most notably by T helper cells. Although variety of cells can produce cytokines, but major production of cytokines is being done by T helper cells. They are one of the very important molecules which are required for strong immune response generations. Now here is a question: which of the following statement about cytokines are correct? First, low molecular weight glycoproteins. 2, there are over 100 different cytokines. C, cytokines acts by binding to cytokine receptors. And 4th one, it can act only on cell that expresses receptors for it. So which of the following features are correct? A or B or C or all? Actually, all of these options are right, because cytokines are low molecular glycoproteins which act by binding to cytokine receptors, and those receptors would be present only on the cells on which a particular cytokine will act. And we know there are more than 100 different kind of cytokines are there. These cytokines belong to different categories. For examples, interferons, interleukins, tumor necrosis factors, interferons. All these different classes of cytokines are there, and cytokines are one of the most important molecules of the immune response because they regulate the intensity and duration of the immune response by having effect on variety of lymphocytes. Their development, their maturation, their differentiation, everything will be decided by cytokines. Whenever immune response is to be generated, those cells would be proliferating, they will be differentiating, they will be dividing, and when immune response is to be stopped, then typical kind of cytokines would be produced which will stop all these processes. So overly if we see, cytokines plays a very important role in the immune response generation. Here there is a concept that is known as class switching. This is a very important concept because people have seen that whenever a particular antigen enters into our body, we are having 5 different classes of antibodies which are binding to the same antigenic epitope, but they belong to different classes. The beauty of class switching is this, कि the same antigen would be eliminated by different classes of antibodies and different specific mechanisms. So class switching is a phenomena by which different classes of antibodies are produced having same antigenic specificity, so that same antigen can be eliminated by a variety of biological functions. Now there is one important question. Why IgM is the first isotype to be produced by the neonate? That means whenever antigen comes into our body, the first antibody that we produce against any antigen is IgM. Why it is so? Actually, the reason is that the gene that is coding for IgM, or the heavy chain, the region, is the first one in the line of genes. Mu is the gene that is present there, that is being followed by delta. That is why the first antibody to be produced is mu, that is IgM. Second antibody to be produced is delta or D. This is the diagrammatic representation of the class switching. Now there is a important molecule that is known as major histocompatibility complex. First we see the questions and then we'll be discussing the various features of major histocompatibility complex. Which of the following is not a feature of MHC haplotype? MHC stands for major histocompatibility complex. 1 is codominance, B is linkage, C is polymorphism, and D is leomorphism. Actually, leomorphism is something that is not a feature of MHC haplotype. Now there comes another question. Which is not encoded by MHC haplotype? Option A, MHC1 alpha chain, MHC1 beta chain, beta 2 microglobulin, and D, all of the above. So when we will be discussing the structure of MHC haplotype, you will see beta 2 microglobulin is associated with MHC class 1 molecule always. The functional integrity of MHC class 1 molecule will depend on beta 2 microglobulin, but beta 2 microglobulin is not encoded by MHC. Here comes third question. In MHC class 1 molecule, the size of bound antigenic peptide is 13 to 16 amino acids, 8 to 10 amino acids, 5 to 7 amino acids, or it is variable. In fact, when people have isolated more than 100 different MHC class 1 molecules bound to the antigenic peptide, what they found that the range is between 8 to 10 amino acids. More specifically, it is made up of 9 amino acids or non-amer. Whereas in the case of MHC class 2 molecule, they are made up of 13 to 16 amino acid residues. Now we are coming to the core concept of MHC molecules. What major histocompatibility complex is? As we know that one of the important feature of immune response is the discrimination between the self and the non-self. This discrimination plays a very important role because whenever a foreign pathogen enters into our body, first our immune system will find out whether it is self and non-self. This recognition of self and non-self actually depends upon MHC. All of our cells or all the cells of an individual, they have same kind of pattern of MHC molecules. And that is why all the cells of the same individual will be recognized as self. And thereafter, anything else would be recognized as foreign and immune response would be generated against them. If we see the definition of MHC molecule, it lies thus: it is a tightly linked cluster of genes present on the chromosome number 6, whose product plays an important role in intercellular recognition and the discrimination between the self and the non-self. MHC participates in the development of both humoral as well as cell-mediated immunity. Now, this MHC is a very important category. You might have heard of kidney transplant. You might have heard of skin graft. So, whenever we are looking for a graft or transplanting the kidney from one individual to another, we have to match MHC. If it matches more than 60 to 70%, then only one kidney can be transferred from one individual to another. In the case of human beings, specifically, the same major histocompatibility complex is known as HLA. That is why before any kind of graft any kind of organ transplant, first step is HLA matching. If it comes in the proper range, then only kidney or other organs can be transplanted from one individual to another individual. The same HLA complex, which is MHC in the case of human beings, is known as H2 in the case of mice. So MHC molecules are known as HLA in the case of humans, H2 in the case of mice. In the case of humans, they are present on chromosome number 6. In the case of mice, they are present on chromosome number 17. There are 3 different classes of MHC class molecules: MHC class 1, MHC class 2 and MHC class 3. MHC class 1 molecules are present on all nucleated cells. So besides RBCs, all the cells of our body, they have MHC class 1 molecules on their surface. MHC class 2 molecules are present on APCs, that is antigen presenting cells. So all the antigen presenting cells like macrophages, dendritic cells, B cells, they have MHC class 2 molecules on their surface. So MHC class 1 molecules and 2 molecules, they play a very important role in MHC restriction. TC cells are MHC class 1 restricted. They will interact with antigen only when it is present along with MHC class 1. T helper cells are MHC class 2 restricted. They will bind to the antigenic peptide only when it is presented with MHC class 2 molecule. While the another last category, that is MHC class 3 molecules, they do not have any role in antigen presentation either by T cells or by TC cells. But they play accessory role in immune response generation. Few of the complement proteins, few of the cytokines, they belong to MHC class 3 molecules. Certain proteins like tumor necrosis factors, heat shock proteins, certain complement proteins like C3, they all belong to this particular MHC class 3 molecules. MHC class 1 molecules, they are present on all the cells of the body which are nucleated. And whenever endogenous antigens are there, for example tumor peptides, or for example virus infections are there, the viral peptides, they will be presented with MHC class 1 molecules to the TC cells. Such antigens are known as endogenous antigens. In the case of MHC class 2 molecules, what happens? A particular antigen will be phagocytosed by a phagocytic cells. It will be processed within that particular cell, and a specific part of that antigenic peptide, which will be now called as epitope, would be presented with MHC class 2 molecules to T helper cells, so that T helper cells will be then activated. This is the important function of MHC class 1 and MHC class 2 molecules. Now there is a one important distinction between the terms. When we talk of class 1 or class 2 genes, that means we are talking about DNA, array of genes which are present on chromosome number 6. But their product, that is called as proteins, then they will be known as MHC molecules. So sometimes questions are being asked on genes, then only MHC class 1 or class 2, it would be written as MHC class 1, MHC class 2. But if it is written as MHC class 1 or 2 or 3 molecules, that means they are talking about proteins. So there is a clear-cut distinction between MHC and MHC molecules. Now, these are the differences between MHC class 1 and class 2 molecules, and you can see the peptide binding domain in the case of MHC class 1. It is present on alpha 1 and alpha 2. In the case of class 2 molecules, it is present on alpha 1 and beta 1. In the case of MHC class 1, the peptide binding cleft is closed. In the case of MHC class 2 molecule, it is open at both ends. In the case of MHC class 1 molecule, we have seen a question on that. It will be mostly bound to an antigenic peptide whose size is 8 to 10 amino acids, and mostly it will be a monomer that is made up of 9 amino acids. Whereas in the case of class 2 molecules, its size will be 13 to 16 amino acids. In the case of MHC class 1, the antigenic peptide would be anchored at 2 ends. So anchor residues are present at the 2 ends. Whereas in the case of MHC class 2 molecules, anchor residues are present throughout the length. 1st, 4th, 7th, 9th, 11th, like that. In the case of MHC class 1 molecule, the extended structure in which both ends interact with MHC cleft, but the middle region will shift away or arches away from the MHC molecule. Whereas in the case of class 2 molecule, it is an extended structure which is bound to the peptide binding cleft at regular intervals. Now, as far as the functions of MHC is concerned, one of the important function of MHC is presentation to T lymphocytes, T helper cells and TC cells. Second, inflammatory mediators and complement activators. Number 3, self non-self recognition, and that is why HLA matching or MHC matching is indispensable before any graft or transplantation. Immune responsiveness and disease susceptibility, it is one of the very important thing. So if there is a difference between the immunity of two individuals, it might be because of the differences in the MHC molecules. And the fifth one is genetic diversity. Here one of the important fact is this, that no two individuals, no two human beings on this earth can have same MHC pattern. That means except the monozygotic twins, all the individuals present on the earth, they have unique MHC pattern. This reflects the diversity of a particular individual. MHC restrictions, we have already discussed that class MHC TC cells and T helper cells, they are MHC restricted. They can interact with the antigen only when the antigen is brought together with appropriate MHC molecule. TC cells are MHC class 1 restricted, whereas T helper cells are MHC class 2 restricted. There are questions that are being asked on this particular nature, whether it is MHC class 1 or it is MHC class 2 restricted. Now there comes a small phenomena of antigen processing and presentation. Overall, if we look at the antigen can be categorized into two types, endogenous and exogenous. Endogenous antigens are those antigens which are present within the cell. For example, viral peptides. For example, tumor peptides. On the other hand, exogenous antigens are those antigens which are present outside the cell. So there are widely two kinds of antigens, endogenous and exogenous. Endogenous antigens are processed and presented by MHC class 1 molecules, or those cells which are possessing MHC class 1. All nucleated cells possess MHC class 1 molecules. All nucleated cells can become infected with a particular virus, they become tumorous. So they will be presenting the tumor or viral peptide with MHC class 1 molecule to TC cells. So immune response against endogenous antigens would be generated by TC cells by this particular pattern. On the other hand, those antigens which are exogenous in nature, they would be phagocytosed by APCs. All the APCs have MHC class 2 molecules on their surface, and these particular cells will engulf the antigen, and then they will present a specific region of that particular antigen after processing by phagocytic pathway to MHC class 2 molecules, and MHC class 2 molecules will present the antigenic peptide to T helper cells so that a strong immune response can be generated against them. So different processing and presenting pathways are there for different kind of antigens. For endogenous antigens, there is a pathway that is called as cytosolic pathway, by which MHC class 1 molecules will be presenting the antigenic peptide to TC cells, and TC cells are involved in the eradication of the altered cell. Whether a cell becomes virus infected or a cell becomes tumorous, it is called as altered cells, and altered cells are removed specifically by TC cells. That is endogenous or cytosolic pathway. Whereas all the exogenous antigens like bacteria and stuff like that, they are being eliminated or removed by phagocytic pathway, and they are engulfed by phagocytic cells. All these phagocytic cells are also called as antigen presenting cells. They will engulf the particle by phenomena that is called as phagocytosis, and then they will process a small part of that particular antigen would be presented with MSC class 2 molecules to the T helper cells. So there is a clear-cut distinction between endogenous and exogenous antigens and the processing pathways by which immune response would be generated against these two different kinds of antigens. This is the diagram that shows the cytosolic pathway. This is the cytosolic pathway. In the case of MSC class 1 molecule, how this particular antigen is being processed and presented with MSC class 1 molecule. Similarly, we can see how MSC class 2 molecule would be involved in the processing and presentation of a what we can say that is exogenous antigen. So this exogenous antigen is processed and presented with MSC class 2 molecules to T helper cell. So this is called as phagocytic pathway, and this particular pathway is called as cytosolic pathway. This diagram we have already seen that different kind of antigens and different kind of lymphocytes are involved in humoral and cell mediated immunity, and this particular phenomena here and here by MSC class 2 and MSC class 1 is called as MSC restriction. Now there comes another important concept that is known as complement. Complement are those proteins, they are low molecular weight glycoproteins which are present in the serum, which acts in a cascade like fashion to generate a specific assembly of protein that is called as membrane attack complex. This membrane attack lyses the foreign microorganisms or pathogens. First we will see certain questions based on complement, and then we will see what complement system is. The question is the C3 convertase of classical pathway is. Now the question comes, what do you mean by classical pathway? In this particular case the answer is C4b2A. We will see how it is there. Another question is complementary proteins are components of. It is a very tricky question. Complement proteins are normally part of innate immunity. So prima facie it appears that option A is right, that is innate immunity. Option B is acquired immunity, option C is both. Actually the right answer is both innate and acquired immunity, because in the case of complement there are three different pathways: classical pathway, alternative pathway and lectin pathway. Within the classical pathway, antibodies are required for the activation of the classical complement pathway. So it becomes component of acquired immunity. Whereas in the case of lectin pathway and alternative pathway, it does not require any antibody molecules. It is being activated by various cell surface receptors present on the surface of antigen. So complement proteins are the components of both innate as well as acquired immunity. Now we will discuss complement proteins for a while. Actually it was the Paul Ehrlich who coined the term complement, and this term was being coined to show the role of the complement. It says that the activity of the blood serum that completes the action of antibody. Now the action of antibody is what? To eliminate the antigen. The elimination of the antigen from the body, the entire process is being completed by something else which is present in the blood serum, and that is being called as complement proteins. So complement was a term that was being coined for certain serum proteins which are present in the blood, which completes or complements the action of the antibody, that is the elimination of the antigen. Now by now we know more than 30 different kinds of soluble and cell bound proteins are there which belongs to complement category. Once the complement system is activated, there are various components which are being activated in a cascade like fashion in a very regulated manner to carry out large number of functions. For example, it may be one particular function of the complement is to generate MAC, that is membrane attack complex. This membrane attack complex would kill the pathogen specifically. Besides that, complement proteins, they have their role in neutralizing the viruses. Complement proteins are also involved in elimination of the or clearance of the immune complex. Immune complex is antigen antibody complex. If this antigen antibody complex settles anywhere, it will create lesions or it will generate inflammation. So timely removal or clearance of antigen antibody molecule is required, and this particular job is being done by complement proteins. Certain complement proteins are very important inflammatory mediators. For example, C3A, C4A, C5A. They are very important inflammatory mediators, and these are also known as anaphylactic proteins, and they may result into anaphylactic shock if the serum levels of C3A, C4A, C5A, if it rises much above a particular level, then they may result into anaphylactic shock. Complement proteins plays a very important role in the providing immunity against variety of pathogens. Now we are coming to the last concept that comes under the category of basics of immunology, and this is antigen antibody interactions. We know that antigen antibody interactions are highly specific. A particular antigen will bind to a particular antibody and vice versa. There are specific regions present on antigen which are known as epitope, and there are specific regions present on antibodies that are known as paratope. So antigen antibody interactions are bimolecular association reactions. In fact, they can also be called as epitope paratope reactions. So epitope present on the antigen will interact with the paratope present on the antibody, and such reactions are called as antigen antibody interactions. Antigen antibody interactions are very important and significant because nowadays so many diagnostic kits are based on antigen antibody interactions, and all these diagnostic kits are highly desirable because they give non-ambiguous results in terms of specificity. The reason is that antigen antibody reactions are highly specific. They have very high affinity for each other. For example, even if picomolar concentration of antigen or antibody are present, they will find each other. That means if we want to determine in a particular sample picomolar concentration of a particular entity, we can do it by antigen antibody interactions. Now these antigen antibody interactions can take variety of forms. It may be agglutination, where antibodies will interact with antigen to form a visible clumping. So all blood typing reactions, hemagglutination reactions, by which we determine our blood group, whether our blood group is A positive, A negative. This is nothing but antigen antibody interaction, a specific kind that is known as hemagglutination reaction. Likewise, antibodies may result into the precipitation of the antigen. And in that case, the antibodies will precipitate a particular antigen which is otherwise soluble but will be precipitated to form an insoluble crystal matrix. Now, this particular reaction is known as precipitation reaction, and these precipitation reaction can take place in liquids as well as gels. Precipitation reactions and their types, for example, immunodiffusion, immunoelectrophoresis, all these techniques are being used in determination of various kinds of immune assays. Then, because of this specificity, because of this particular high affinity and non-ambiguity, variety of other antigen antibody interactions are now being recognized, particularly the ELISA, enzyme linked immunosorbent assay technique, which is being used specifically for the detection of HIV in the sample. So in all the hospitals throughout the world, ELISA is a very important technique which is again based on antigen antibody interaction, which is being used to detect HIV. So it is mandatory for all primary health centers, for all blood banks to do ELISA test, that is nothing but antigen antibody interaction, and from which we can detect HIV. Now, an important feature is being asked in one of the important question that antigen antibody interactions are important. Why? Because of their specificity, because of their sensitivity, because of the non-ambiguity. Yes, it is because of all these three things that antigen antibody interactions plays a very important role. Now, there is a question that is known as precipitin curve. Precipitin curve is a plot between concentration of antigen versus concentration of antibody, amount of precipitate versus concentration of antigen, amount of precipitate versus concentration of antibody, and the last option is concentration of antibody versus agarose concentration. The right option is amount of precipitate versus concentration of antigen. There is a plot that is being graphed, that is being, we will see it in the TallyTalk, what kind of graph it is there. So we will be looking into the precipitin curve. Precipitin curve is a plot or a graph between amount of precipitate against increasing antigen concentration. So if we take same amount of serum in various aliquots and we increases the antigen concentration, what we found is a graph like this. So what we see is that there three particular regions can be identified. This particular region is called as antigen access zone. This particular region is called as antibody access zone. Whereas this particular central region is called as zone of equivalence. So three different kind of zones are being recognized. The first one is called as antigen access zone. Second is called as zone of equivalence, and this is called as antibody access zone. So what we see here, antigen is in much access, here antibodies is in much access, whereas this particular region that is called as zone of equivalence, here the antigen antibody components are in equimolar concentration. This particular precipitin curve can be used to determine the amount of antibodies present in the particular serum sample. This particular kind of tests are known as QPA or quantitative precipitin assay. The quantitative precipitin assay are derived from, or they are principally dependent upon precipitin curve, and that is why these precipitin curves are important. So in a nutshell we can say that precipitin curve is a graph or plot between increasing amount of precipitate against increasing antigen concentration, and this is called as precipitin curve. So now we will be coming back to the presentation. So we have seen that precipitin curve is a plot that is against the amount of precipitate versus concentration of antigen. Besides that, other kind of antigen antibody interactions involves immunodiffusion. Immunodiffusion is a technique which involves precipitation reaction in the gel. If we dissolve the antibodies in a particular agarose solution and we form a matrix, and then if we put antigen, so there will be diffusion of antigen and antibodies towards each other. This particular technique is called as immunodiffusion. When immunodiffusion is being used along with the electrophoresis, then the technique becomes immunoelectrophoresis. So immunoelectrophoresis is a technique that involves separation of the mixture of antigens on the basis of electrophoresis and their identification by immunodiffusion. So antigen antibody interactions can be of various kinds. It may be agglutination, it may be precipitation, they are being involved in hemagglutination, they are being utilized in immunodiffusion, immunoelectrophoresis, in ELISA, RIA, and variety of other such reactions. Antigen antibody interactions, because of their specificity, because of their non-ambiguity, and because of their high affinity, is being used in variety of medical laboratories for the detection of different kind of antigen or antibody in question. So this was all about the basics of immunology. Immunology, by this time now we are very much aware, is the science that deals with the resistance of the body against variety of pathogens. And this entire immune system is comprised of variety of cells, lymphoid organs, primary, secondary and tertiary lymphoid organs, and they all works in unison. They all work in coordination to prevent the individual from variety of infections and pathogens. So this was all about the basics of immunology. Besides that, one important thing is there, sometimes our immune system may go wrong. There are certain conditions where our immune system may not function properly. When our immune system generates an immune reaction against self molecule, then it is called as autoimmunity. Generating immune response against self molecules is called as autoimmunity. When we are not able to generate immune response against certain molecules, then it is called as immunodeficiency. Immunodeficiency can be of two types, primary and secondary. The example of primary immunodeficiency is SCID, whereas AIDS is the example of secondary immunodeficiency or acquired immunodeficiency. Sometimes our immune response may be inappropriate. That is, it might be exaggerating. So whenever we generate a strong immune response that is inappropriate, that is exceedingly larger than what is actually required, then it is called as hypersensitivity. Hypersensitivity in normal terms is being called as allergy. So asthma, allergy, hay fevers, all these are inappropriate and exaggerated immune response, and they are being called as hypersensitivity. So whenever immune response err, it might be autoimmunity, it might be hypersensitivity, it might be immunodeficiency. Most of the time our immune system works properly, and that is why we remains healthy. The differences in the immunity of different kind of individuals will be resulting into the fact that few person are more healthy and few person becomes ill very often, because the differences lies in their immunity. So this was all about the concept of immunity, immunology, and the various components which are involved. Thank you for patient listening.